I want you to hold your questions and think about what you want to ask John at the end, because I think we'll be able to spare some time to engage a bit of a discussion with John after his talk. Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's go. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's better. My name's Jonathan Smart. I'm leading on the transformation at Barclays Bank. How many of you have heard of Barclays Bank? Okay, most of you. So we've been on this journey for about 2.5 years. I've been at Barclays for 7 years, and I started out as a graduate, as a developer on the trading floor at Merrill Lynch in investment banking. And this was in the early 90s. This was around 1993. And we worked in an agile manner. It wasn't called agile, but we were agile because I was sitting next to my customer, the trader. And the trader would say, I want a bit of this. I want this on the film. I want this field here. Tap, tap, tap. Here you go. What do you think? You know, we had continuous integration. We had an agile team. We had a team of 3 people, and we did everything. We did the analysis, the development, the testing, the support in the middle of the night, and that makes you a good developer. Getting a call at 3 o'clock in the morning to support your software makes you a good developer. So I've always worked in an agile manner. I started programming when I was 12. ZX81, ZX Spectrum, Acorn Electron, Commodore 64. Just looking to see if there's any nods in the audience. Home computers in the 80s. So I've been programming since I was 12. So I'm kind of just passionate on this topic. And so working at a large, bureaucratic, heavily regulated, old, large company, there was a lot of un-agile behavior. So the firm, new senior leader came in, and the firm decided, let's go agile. So I put my hand up and I volunteered, and I said, I'll help. I'm pleased to say my volunteering was accepted. So what I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share the lessons learned. I'm going to share the things that I wish I had known 2.5 years ago. Hopefully this will help shortcut any failings if any of you are going through a similar journey. And I'm also going to talk specifically about speed and control, because we are in a very regulated industry, so that ability to have regulation, control and speed is important. Now, how many of you work in an industry that's regulated? Okay, for those of you that didn't put your hand up, does your company have any customer data, like names and addresses and emails? Yes. So I think you probably all work in a company which is regulated, because there's regulation around customer data and what you can do with it and what you can't do with it. There's regulation around Sarbanes-Oxley and who does what. So there is a lot of regulation out there, and we've seen recently what happens if you're not good at things like cyber as well. So it's not just regulation, but Equifax, massive data leak in the US. There are controls that a firm needs to implement, which might not be a regulation, but you still have got to have really good cyber security, for example. So how do you do that and be agile? Because if you've got these teams being agile, are they going to cut corners? How do you know they've encrypted data? How do you know the data is being stored in the right place? So I'm going to show how we have tackled that challenge across Barclays. So first of all, a bit about Barclays. Barclays is a financial services firm. We're a universal bank. We are 327 years old. We were founded in 1690, around about the same time that the United States of America was being formed. We have 120,000 employees in 40 countries, and we have 48 million customers. So we're old and we're big. We process the equivalent of 30% of the annual gross domestic product in the UK every single day. So we have 600 billion pounds is going through our software and our systems every day. So as you can imagine, the repercussions of us having an outage are quite significant in terms of it doesn't take long before a customer goes bankrupt or we go bankrupt, So we've absolutely got to have control. We've got to have, banking is all about trust. We've got to have trust and we've got to have control. We're not like Netflix. Netflix have had a number of big outages. If Netflix have an outage, it's a case of, sorry, you can't binge watch Orange is the New Black, as opposed to not getting your paycheck. We meet a financial need for almost 50% of adults in the United Kingdom, and £1 in every £3 in the UK is spent on Barclaycard. And we operate in the most regulated industry. I did some research. There are 220 financial regulators globally, and we have to keep them all happy. So, what are the lessons learned on our journey? So, when we started out on the Agile transformation at Barclays, me and my team, we formed. We're deliberately all internal. We're deliberately all permanent members of staff, and we deliberately all have a long history at Barclays. And this is really important because we know how the firm works and we know how to get stuff done. We deliberately didn't go and hire a large, a consultancy to come along and kind of do the Agile transformation for us. We had ownership of it and we kept ownership of it. I didn't hire a single external person for our central team. Now, we did hire coaches. We hired lots of coaches to help coach across the firm. When we started out, we were called the Agile Adoption Team. For the first 2 years, we were called the Agile Adoption Team. After 2 years, we had gone from about 4% of our spend on change being spent with Agile practices to 63%. So when you think of crossing the chasm in the normal distribution curve of early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards, after 2 years, we were into the late majority. So now we're into the critics. At the beginning, it's people like you. It's the Church of Agile. People are quite happy to sign up to the Church of Agile, quite happy to use different like sprints, Scrum Master, Product Owner, iterations, Kanban flow, quite happy with that terminology, in fact quite passionate about that terminology. But when you get into the late majority and the critics, it's Agile over my dead body. And when someone says that, I know they're about to leave the firm. And sometimes that's a good thing. So when you get into the critics, the A word holds you back. It makes it harder. So we've stopped using the A word. I never use capital A Agile anyway. I would always use lowercase a Agile. Agile mindset, being Agile, agility, not doing Agile. But even then, we have found we've had to not use the A word. So our team is now called the Better Products Faster team. That's the name of my team. And we are here to help you deliver better products faster. Doesn't matter whether you're Agile or Waterfall, it's fine. It's fine. We're going to improve from your current state. So kind of a Kanban method philosophy of start with what you do now and continuously improve. And let's look at where the impediments are. Theory of constraints. Let's look at where your biggest impediment is. As per Klaus's talk earlier, it might not be software development where the impediment is. It might be portfolio management. It might be further upstream. The full name for our team, so this is my elevator pitch, is Better Products Faster, Safer, Happier. So if someone asks me in the elevator what I do, I say, I help the organization deliver better products faster, safer, happier. That's our tagline, and that is exactly what we're doing. It's better, it's faster, it's safer, and it's happier. A question I get asked a lot by senior leaders is, how can we increase our productivity? But that is a flawed question. It's the wrong question to be asking, because the definition of productivity is to produce more output for a given unit of input. I can produce rubbish quicker. We can produce rubbish quicker. That's fine. But that isn't going to help the organization. That isn't going to really truly help the organization become better, faster, safer, happier. We can just produce more rubbish quicker. So it isn't productivity. It's valuativity. What we're striving here, and this is a made-up word, this is not an English word, we're striving for valuativity. We want to maximize value. And some people in the organization whose mindset is not quite there yet will say, but the productivity's dipped. Yes, the productivity has to dip because you need to go and do a Gemba walk. You need to go and visit the customers. You need to go and speak to people. You need to sit next to people and experiment. You need to innovate. You need to try things. And that means you're not tapping away at a keyboard for 8 hours a day. So there's some tooling out there that looks at productivity for software development, which, as per Martin Fowler, you can't measure productivity for software development. But there's tooling out there that looks at how productive a developer is, and I think it's fundamentally flawed because it's looking at how much tapping on the keyboard are you doing. So it's about valuativity. I'll explain a bit more in a minute. And so actually, our team name is Better Value, Faster, Safer, Happier. It isn't just better products faster, it's better value, faster, safer, and happier. To quote Peter Drucker, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Again, as per Klaus's talk earlier, if your portfolio management team and your senior leadership are deciding once a year what you're working on, you do not have business agility, and you will never have business agility because you're still producing stuff, and who knows if that's what the customer still wants. Is that really the best thing for your firm? The second learning is we are focused on whole enterprise agility. So my remit, my role is across the whole firm, not just technology, not just PMO, the whole firm. That includes HR, legal, audit, compliance, information security. It's product delivery end-to-end. It's value delivery end-to-end. The businesses, the investment bank, the retail bank. And a definition of enterprise agility, and credit to Dan North for 90% of that, is the speed and effectiveness with which an organization can generate new insights, adapt and respond to them. And really important there, I think, is generate new insights. How quickly can you generate new insights? Churning stuff out, doing Agile, is not too difficult. But generating new insights is difficult, and that is harder, and we need to be generating insights. And that requires the recipient of the change to be giving feedback. Because again, we can just be we can be pushing stuff to the person receiving the change, receiving the product, but we need to be getting something back, and it takes effort to get stuff back. Another definition of whole enterprise agility is a network of interdependent services. Again, there's some similarities here with Klaus's talk earlier. The firm is a network of interdependent services, and a bit like a microservices architecture, we want high cohesion and low coupling, especially low coupling. The point around dependencies, we want to minimize dependencies between teams, between products. It's a network of interdependent services. And an organization needs to be a purpose-driven, self-managing shapeshifter. So the purpose-driven, so there's input here from Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux and Teal organizations. And Teal organizations are purpose-driven. They have a higher level purpose. So your organization needs to have a high-level purpose. For us, our purpose is to help people achieve their ambitions in the right way. That's the Barclays purpose, to help people achieve their ambitions in the right way. We need to be self-managing. The organization needs to be able to, as a complex adaptive system, it needs to be able to be self-managing. And the military learnt this lesson in the 1800s, where instead of it being command and control, it was mission control. This is the mission. You're empowered to achieve that mission however you see fit. And shapeshifters is the ability for an organization which has got links. If you were to draw a social graph, you'd see the links between people and teams. And then there was a stressful event like a 2008, for example, a market collapse. The organization needs to be able to reform those bonds. Or there's new fintech entrants, there's a new challenger bank like Monzo or Atom or Starling. Or, in the case of retail, Amazon Fresh. Amazon now are selling fresh produce. So there's a disruptive event in the market, and the organization needs to be able to reform those bonds. It needs to be able to create new value streams quickly. Now, there is a chemical property for this, which I found out, which is thixotropic. So thixotropic is a chemical property that when you have a substance that is thixotropic, if you apply a stress to it, it will go more viscous, it'll go more runny. And then after a while, it will go less runny, less viscous. Can any of you think of something that has that property? What has that property? Apply a stress, it goes runny. Take the stress away, it goes harder. Sorry? Sorry, I can't hear. Potentially. I think it's a problem with this room. It's very hard to hear, sorry. So, Play-Doh, yeah, true. Maybe temperature for Play-Doh, maybe. Plasticine, yes, that's what you were saying. Yes, there's one that you put on food. I don't know how much. We have it a lot in the UK, on chips. Ketchup. Shake ketchup and it goes more runny. And it comes out. Leave it and it goes harder. So organizations need to be more like ketchup. You can quote me on that. You can tweet that. Whole enterprise agility. This is audit. Our internal audit department have adopted agile ways of working outside of IT. So this is nothing to do with IT. This is how our audits are run. So the new way for an internal audit to run, previously the auditors would run multiple audits at the same time, lots of work in progress, long lead times, and the auditors would be time sliced on many audits. Typical kind of legacy way of working. Now, there are boards, work is limited, the number of audits at any one point is limited. An auditor works on one audit at one time. They work in multidisciplinary teams, and they're long-lived teams, not time-sliced, and they deliver a skeleton of the audit report every week. So, and they've cut the time to audit down to 2/3 of what it used to be, and they think they're going to get it down to 1/3 of how long it used to take. And speaking as someone who's been audited multiple times, this is far better, because every week I can see what they're thinking. I can see the field work. I can see the forming conclusions, and I can say, well, hang on a minute, go and have a look at this. So there's a lot less waste. Real estate. This is where our head of real estate for Barclays stands. This is where the management team stand, and they stand. There are no chairs. There's a high table, and there are Kanban boards. And so, in 40 countries with quite a lot of property, all of that property is managed through Kanban boards. We got an external third-party company to come in to do some work on real estate. And when they came in, they did Microsoft Project Gantt charts, printed them out, and stuck them on the wall. We said, that's interesting, try working like this. 3 Kanban boards on the left-hand side of the room, on this side of the room, Gantt charts on this side of the room. Come back 3 months later, these Gantt charts are gathering dust, they haven't changed, the Kanban boards are alive. And I spoke to the guy who was running the company, and I said, this was the first time they've done it, which would you do next time? Absolutely Kanban boards. From now, every client we go to now, we're taking a Kanban approach to property. Nothing to do with IT. The next learning. It's easier to act your way to a new way of thinking than it is to think your way to a new way of acting. What I mean by this is, don't just stick people on a 2-day certified Scrum Master course, or a 2-day product owner course, or a SPC course, or any other kind of course, and just say, right, there you go, you've had your training, now go and be agile, because it won't work. And this is a learning from John Shook. John Shook was the first American manager at Toyota. And his observation of the Toyota production system and other Japanese companies as they go on a lean transformation is that they change the system of work first, and they support people in how to work in that new system of work. So the old model was to change thinking to change the behavior. Stick people on a training course, agile transformation, rah, rah, rah. You've got about 6 months before people are saying, why aren't we done yet? The new model is change the system, change behavior to change the thinking, change the system of work. And it is incredibly difficult for colleagues in the company to change the bigger system of work. Teams can change how the teams work, but they can't easily change the bigger ecosystem. So if there is a business case and a business review board who meet once a year, and a portfolio management process, and there's IT operations who release once a quarter, it's very hard for someone in the middle of that to change the rest of the system. So you have to change the system of work. The next learning is, I used to think it was a case that I'll believe it when I see it. So we've got some teams who are really agile, they're fantastic, they're doing a great job, they're our case studies, they are our shining exemplars. So we'll take people along, Gemba walk, go and show them these teams. Look what they're doing, isn't this fantastic? But still, there are still a lot of people who don't believe it when they see it. They still are not convinced. There are a lot of people who only will see it when they believe it. You've got to get belief. You've got to get the belief system kicking in, and that takes a lot of time, especially as you get into the critics, as you get into the late majority, the people who don't want to go agile, the people who are quite happy as they are, thank you very much. So there's one train of thought is we'll leave them. Focus on the champions first, and leave the critics. Eventually they'll sit on the fence sitters become champions, some more critics sit on the fence, so you end up with a pull coming over from the critics over to the champions. But people do have to believe it. You've got to get into their belief system, and that takes repetition. There are over 300 cognitive biases. So that is obviously you can't see it, it's far too small. On that picture is a list of cognitive biases. And like I said, there are over 300. So there are plenty of reasons why people will not believe that this agile thing is going to work. There's even a bias against having a bias. It's called the bias. And that leads to fake news. Or this expression that's come up recently, fake news, because I don't believe it. There's a US president who thought he saw 1.5 million people at his inauguration. The Parks office said there are about 200,000, but he believes it. Right, the next slide I'm going to put up an X-ray, a lung X-ray. Imagine you are a radiologist. Imagine you work at a hospital and you have to identify a tumor, a cancerous growth in this lung X-ray. So you are looking for white dots. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to identify which white dot is cancerous. Okay, which one? The one on the left. Okay, did any of you spot anything strange on that slide? Sorry? Did any of you spot that gorilla? Did any of you see the gorilla in the top right? So, the reason I put this slide up, 83% of radiologists in an experiment didn't see the gorilla. There is a gorilla in the top right. These radiologists are doctors. They've got PhDs. They are super intelligent people. 83% failed to see that gorilla. And it's because of what they're looking for. They are looking for a white dot. They're looking for cancerous growth. There's another example of this where there are people throwing a ball, and a gorilla walks across the video, and about half of the people who are counting the ball throws, again, they don't see the gorilla. Now this is inattentional blindness. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this. What we ask people to look for will in part determine what they see and what they don't see. So how do we track work? How do we track knowledge work? Budget, project, time, cost, schedule, quality, typically is what we're looking for. Is it on time? Is it to quality? Is the scope all delivered? Yeah, I think that's pretty much the traditional iron triangle is what we tend to look at. What organizations don't tend to look at is flow, for example. We need to shine a light on the system of work. There are so many organizations that have not got a clue as to how their system of work is working. They haven't got a clue as to how efficient or inefficient their system of work is. I did a round table session with some CIOs, about 20 CIOs, and I asked these 20 CIOs if any of them knew a single flow metric for their organization, and not one did. No one knew a single lead time distribution, average, percentile, whatever, not a single flow metric. We've got to shine a light on the system of work. So, how are we doing that? So this is one of our lessons learned. This is one of our evolutions over 2.5 years. We are measuring flow. And specifically, we're measuring genuine lead time. So from work committed through to production, not just in Jira, not just picked off the backlog, implemented and moved to done, which isn't really done. It's not done. So we're measuring genuine lead time, distribution, 80th percentile. I send out metrics to the senior leadership team in a transparent manner so that everybody can see everybody else's metrics on the improvement over time on lead time, the 80th percentile lead time. So there's a bit of peer pressure here for the teams to get better. So we're surfacing lead time. We are also surfacing quality. So the average incidents in production per product per month. We are surfacing control, and this is our control compliance, things like information security, information risk management, data privacy. So control compliance measures we're communicating. Happiness, we measure through semi-annual colleague surveys, and we make that available. And we do the same set of questions, and we have a net promoter score. So we have a colleague net promoter score, and we can see the differences in region, in maturity, in the business lines, and we look very closely at this data. And we measure business outcomes. So back to my point around value and valuativity, we measure business outcomes and not milestones. Not is the analysis done, is development done, is testing done, but quarterly, roughly quarterly or less, quarterly or shorter business outcomes. So a business outcome would be number of clicks on the website has gone up by 10%. Number of mortgages sold has gone up by 5%. Net promoter score has gone up by 5 points, etc., etc. And it's interesting how these correspond to faster, better, safer, happier, and value. So back to my first slide, we are measuring and making transparent metrics on the thing that we do, the name of our team, better products, faster, safer, happier. And we're holding each of the CIOs, there are many CIOs across the business, we are holding them accountable to improvements in those numbers. And my team is a small central COE. My team's about 5 or 6 people, and we provide help in the center. So Kevin Mayer wrote a blog post about a visit to Japan that he did, and he looked at a number of companies in Japan who were on a lean transformation or had done a lean transformation. And he summarized his learnings in 3 words. And this really resonates for me, and again, this is another learning. So first of all, leadership need to be courageous. There needs to be courage. We are going to change the system of work. We are going to do something different, not go on then, go and be agile. Arms crossed, off you go and be agile teams. But we are going to change the system of work. We're going to take some significant steps. There has to be courage. Then there has to be intelligence. People have to be smart about this. It's messy. It's not clean. There's all sorts of politics, and there's all sorts of reasons why, and there's all sorts of history, but there needs to be intelligence over identifying which lever to pull. You know, where is my constraint? It might not be software development. It might be something completely different. And the third word is patient. It really does require patience. It requires a great deal of resilience and a great deal of patience. For a company to significantly change its performance, it takes a minimum of 5 years. And this was some research that was done. There's a book called Accelerating Performance, written by 2 ex-McKinsey consultants, and they analysed FTSE 100 companies over a 7-year period, and they found out of 5 sectors of performance, it took 5 years for a company to step up a sector of performance. So this is at a minimum a 5-year journey, and even then, this journey doesn't end. It's continuous improvement. You're never done. But it's a minimum of 5 years for really lasting change. And at the beginning, I had some senior leaders coming to me after 6 months and 8 months saying, like, John, have you done it yet? So show me, how much better is it? So there's 327 years of history. It's quite hard to change that in 6 months. The next learning, use the force loop. So this is the Kubler-Ross curve. Similar to the Kubler-Ross curve is the Gartner hype cycle. And we have observed this pattern many times. And this pattern is, first of all, a honeymoon period. The trough of excitement. Everyone's like, yay, we're going on an agile journey. Woo! And you have town halls and workshops and banners and everything. And then you get into the trough of disillusionment. And it's like, are you done yet? Have you finished? Yeah, where's the results? And some people go, oh, this is quite hard. Actually, you know what? Maybe this isn't for us. We're not going to do this. And then people step back. And at that point, you do lose some people. Some people who maybe were a bit kind of arms crossed, kind of go on then be agile, at that point might decide to take a step back. But then there are other areas who keep on at it, and they keep working away, and it is hard graft, and it needs resilience, and they climb their way up. And then they enter their next Kubler-Ross curve, the next challenge, the next honeymoon period. Another analogy is J-curves, a series of J-curves to step your way up. So what I've learned from this is try to make the J-curves small, a series of small J-curves, not one big one, so a series of Kubler-Ross curves. And also, another thing I've learned is make the most of it at the beginning. While you've got all the goodwill and you can get all the senior leaders to come out and talk, get them out to talk, you know, get them to bring the organization along, because later it will be harder. I guarantee it will be harder. And I can map individual business units in Barclays on this curve. They are each at different places, and I know exactly where they are. Some of them are at the point of excitement, some of them are stuck circling around the trough of disillusionment, down the bottom, not making their way out, and some of them have made their way out and have like carried on up. The next thing I'm going to talk about is both do the thing right and do the right thing. And we have lean control and lean portfolio management, because it isn't just about doing the thing right, it's also about doing the right thing. So I'm going to talk about these two topics now. First of all, lean control, do the thing right. We play this game, the cows in the meadow game, and we play this game with our control, compliance, information security, data privacy colleagues. So these are colleagues who are in a control function. Their job is to stop change. Their job is to make sure that nothing goes wrong. No data is leaked, that we don't have an Equifax incident. That's their job. Now, but we want to be agile. We want change. They don't want change. So how do we manage that? So we play this game with our control colleagues to help bring them on the journey. And the cows in the meadow game, what you have to do is you have to draw a beautiful summer meadow with blue and red flowers in green grass, some cows and birds under a shining sun. Those are your instructions. And we divide the room in half down the middle. One half work in a traditional manner, and the other half work in a modern way of working manner. Let's have a look at the results. So, which of those two do you think is better? Yes, the one on the left. The one on the left, the sun is shining nicely, there's birds in the sky, the cows have got perspective, a big cow at the front, small cow at the back, there's some green grass, there's some red flowers, there's some blue flowers. That's looking good. The one on the right, there's a cow upside down, crossed out, with the word oops. So maybe that cow's going to heaven, maybe. There's some birds which are standing in the sky. They're not flying, so they've been able to overcome gravity. There's flowers in the sky. And there's no perspective on the cows at all. They're all miniature cows. Must be a special breed of cow that's very tiny. So, as you can imagine, the one on the left, the team worked as a team, including the control people. So the control people had a separate piece of paper, and that separate piece of paper had the control standard. And the control standard said, there has to be gravity, there has to be perspective, things have got to be the right way up, and no dead cows going to heaven. So they were working with the team, engaging early and often, and they had a few teams to go between, but they kept going between the teams. Yeah, that looks good, that's good. Oh, don't do that, that's good. Over here, the traditional teams, the control person deliberately stood at the back of the room on their phone and deliberately didn't engage and waited for one of the team members to come to them, because that's how it works. And when they came to them, they say, yeah, I don't know, I'll look it up and I'll get back to you. And that really brings home the importance of working as teams and working together when they see the output. So, what we've done now is we've created control tribes. Control tribes work with the product delivery teams. They are an attached team, and they're like a secondary team, if you like, and they support multiple product development teams. And so in terms of the from and the to, we've gone from early engagement and late engagement in a traditional way of working to early and often engagement as a control person, information security, for example. The control colleagues have gone from being time sliced on 100 different things. 1 minute it's mortgages, the next minute it's investment banking, the next minute it's high net worth, and now they are in a long-lived team aligned to a customer value stream. So now we have the mortgages control tribe, and they get to understand the needs of the customer, the unarticulated needs of the customer, the things that the customer wants that the customer doesn't know the customer wants. And they work with, not just with information security, not just with their own guild, but they work with run the bank, enterprise architecture, information risk management, data privacy. So they work as a multidisciplinary control tribe. And we've implemented this at scale in Barclays. And currently, more than half of all of our change, 53% of all of our change at this point in time is using this model. And that's ramped up a lot this year. At the beginning of this year, it was a lot less. So we're over the tipping point now. Aligned by role previously, now multidisciplinary team. Engagement via email to an engagement health and-on cord. So as per Toyota, where people can pull the and-on cord to stop the assembly line, we have built in a virtual and-on cord so that if a delivery team feels they're not getting the right engagement from information security or vice versa, and the engagement health isn't good, they can press or pull a virtual cord and it shows up. Effectively, it's a Kanban board, but in the different meaning of Kanban, not Kanban method, but as a visual indicator. And then that triggers oversight as to why is the engagement health not good. And that's all in one place. And it goes from being a contract to a conversation, because we expect people to have a conversation. And it goes from a linear project to quarterly business outcomes, like I mentioned. To support the control tribes and to support business agility in a heavily regulated industry, we have also implemented a lean control tool which supports the people and supports the process. And it's in that order: people, process, tool. The tool is tailored to context. It isn't one size fits all. Previously, it was pretty much one size fits all. It focuses on long-lived products and quarterly business outcomes. So back to better products faster. Even if you're waterfall, even if you are traditional, we still expect you to follow this. And it starts bringing in agility, because I don't have this Church of Agile thing, but I've still got to deliver a business outcome every quarter. So before teams realize it, they end up increasing their agility. There's a menu of risk stories. Previously, I had to go onto many different websites and read many different standards to work out what I needed to implement in the product. And now we've got a menu of risk stories. Conversation with the control subject matter expert. There's an engagement health indicator. And it isn't a case of automate all the things. You know, there's a meme, automate all the things. And I would say, no, don't automate all the things. Because a lot of things are context sensitive. And you've got to have a conversation around what the right thing is to do. We don't need to implement 80 steps automatically for every single change. It depends on the context. And effectively, this is the CAMs for control: culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. So, lean portfolio management. So that was how we build the right thing and make sure that we have control in our agility. Now, how do we make sure we have agility end to end? So this is lean portfolio management. We are moving, and we're relatively early in this, we are moving to hypothesis-driven investment. Previously, it will come as no surprise that we used to have annual planning, and there was a lack of agility in terms of the portfolio management. We are on the journey to have more hypothesis-driven investment. So we quote business outcomes in this manner, and credit to Barry O'Reilly for this. We believe implementing this capability will result in this outcome. We will have confidence to proceed when we see a measurable signal, or we will know we're successful when we see measure 1, measure 2, measure 3. And we are doing this. We capture business outcomes in this form. And it's a bit like OKRs, if any of you have come across OKRs, objectives and key results, that Google, LinkedIn, Google Rework website published a load of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff on OKRs there. That's worth a look. Effectively, it's the same. It's a very similar thing. So, quarterly business outcomes instead of milestones. Rolling wave planning instead of annual. Learning and optionality over sunk cost. We have the ability to pivot frequently. Incremental build of a business case. So we'll have a lightweight business case, run some experiments, do a spike, build it up, kill things. So we're kind of building the kind of that innovation mentality into all of the work, not just a separate set of innovation work. Obeya rooms. Obeya rooms are performance rooms. They are lots of visualization. I'll show you a picture shortly. Lots of visualization of what's going on. And we are doing more of this because it's a great way for people to see the state of the system, and especially at the portfolio level. So we have had our senior leaders in the business, for the business priorities, we had Kanban boards outside our group CEO offices. So our group CEO, again, nothing to do with technology. Well, actually, we're all to do with technology. But group CEO, we had Kanban boards outside his office, so we had top-level visualization of work. And this is an example of an Obeya room. This is for Barclays Cards. This is Barclays Partner Finance. And what you can see here is the printouts just there. That's from the CEO. So that's the CEO's top 5 or 6 priorities for the year. And then we've got a Kanban process pulling the work from the left to the right. And we've got business outcomes, features, and stories. And we're limiting work in progress. And on the right, you can see that's where the teams are. The teams are pulling one feature at a time. And you can see there's a burn up there. We've got the backlog of features in refinement. And the business leadership team, the CEO and his directs, stand in that room on a regular basis, like weekly or bi-weekly. And so this is something we've made a start on, and we want to do much more of this. So in terms of the journey over 2.5 years and where we've seen teams do this well, what are some of the outcomes that we've seen? So some of the outcomes we've seen is we have seen lead time halved. And actually, this is not in some teams. We've got about 40 teams who we regard as deep agile. You know, they are our exemplars. They're doing it really well. And this is the average for those 40 teams. So over a 2-year period, the average lead time halved. The throughput, not surprisingly, doubled. The cost was down 30% to 50%. The average incidence in production went down by 70%, and that is incidents in production on average per application per month. Colleague engagement went up, and customer net promoter score went up. So, yeah, the good thing now is we've got hard data. So if there are any skeptics in the organization who maybe they need to believe it before they see it, we've got even more data now that we can say, look, this is working. So, to summarize, speed and control, the better your brakes, the faster you can go. If you can stop quickly, if you can pivot quickly, you can go faster. And having speed and control gives you better brakes. Thank you.
Questions? I see questions. Hands up there, hands up here, hands up there. Fantastic.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. Yes? You cannot. Thank you, Stavro. Okay. Where is your team resides in the organization chart of Barclays? Who is your boss? Because if Agile starts from IT, it's an IT initiative. If design thinking starts from analysts, it's an analyst job. If, I don't know, the learning process starts from the network, it's a network initiative, and we have, silos and politics. Who is your boss in Barclays?
So, where me and my team sit, we sit in what we're calling ServCo, services company. So we have, ultimately it's the group COO. Now the group COO is not my boss, but we sit in group COO. And sitting in group COO, that includes HR, includes audit, includes real estate. Now, as it happens, I am in technology, but my remit is not just technology. So I report to the group CTO, the Group Chief Technology Officer. However, as I've said, our remit is end-to-end agility. And the good thing is that all change is owned by technology, if that makes sense. And that could be misconstrued. I don't mean it's owned by technology. Obviously, we partner with our business partners to deliver technology. The key thing is we don't have people doing change outside of technology. We used to have change teams outside of technology. So I think calling us technology is probably the wrong word. You know, we are product development. We are change. Yeah.
How many people are you?
So how many people in my team? So we are a small central center of excellence. So 5 or 6 people. But then I've got a champion network deliberately federated. So for each of the business areas, there's a champion and they have a small team. And that's a pattern that carries on going. So in that way you can scale.
I can't wait to see the Kanban on the CEO of Eurobank's wall, right? That'll be pretty cool when that happens. It's going to happen? Fantastic. Okay, we had a few more questions here and there. I think you raised your hand, sir, or not? No? The back there.
Hi. You mentioned you'd already been working in an agile fashion ever since 1993 or even before that. What did the agile concepts as they got articulated through the Agile Manifesto bring into your mindset that was already agile thinking, but what did this manifesto bring in for your work, the way you interact with others, as it started gaining traction in a more formulated way?
I think more. So how did the Agile Manifesto help? Given we were kind of naturally working that way anyway, I think if anything, it helps. From my perspective, because we were already working in that manner, it helps other people, because it's so easy to be an island of agility in a sea of traditional, you know. So if anything, it helps other people's mindsets. I think actually the thing that helped most was extreme programming. And there's a lot in XP. I think we're probably, there's room for more of a focus around extreme programming, I think. So if anything, it was the white book coming out that I think that had probably a bigger impact.
Shall we take a few more? There's one in the back there.
Okay, I also come from Eurobank, and I would like to ask you about the engagement of the control tribes, as you said, 2 of them, very important, security and architecture. Usually they have a lot of resource allocation issues. They have scarce and highly skilled resources, and going from the from, which is early and late, to the to, which is early and often. Did it pose to them in your own particular environment a resource allocation or a resource availability issue, and how did they resolve it in cooperation with your team?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It is difficult, and the feedback that I got from our control... Yes? So if anyone didn't catch... Yes, the question, to repeat it, is how did we go from the traditional engagement with Control SMEs, and there's resource challenges, difficult to get people's time, to engaging early and often. And it is difficult. Absolutely, it's hard. Because also, speaking to our control colleagues, the feedback I got is they were spending a large amount of their time reactively fixing things that were already not quite right. Catching things just before they go to production, but still catching things, but in a reactive manner. So at the beginning, it's the hardest, because our colleagues are spending most of their time reactively and the least amount of time proactively. And what we want to do is to make most amount of time proactively and the least amount of time reactively. So there's no two ways about it. It's difficult at the beginning. So we scaled up gradually. We had quite a slow, gradual build-up of adoption, and then we went steeper after we'd created a bit of space. Also what we do, it's not one size fits all. So the level of engagement varies. So if you're building an internet-facing payment system, you need a high level of engagement. If you're building an application which shows the restaurant menu at lunchtime, you don't need very much engagement. So we have an engagement indicator, high, medium, low, or none. And as you're doing your business outcome, and you have a conversation, because these people know your value stream, they know your product, they'll say high, medium, low, none, and it's normally a couple that are high, and then you spend time with them, and then it becomes a delta, because it isn't like a big conversation, it becomes little and often. So in summary, it is hard at the beginning, but eventually you get there, provided you scale up at a sustainable pace.
Hi, and thanks for an amazingly interesting talk. I'm very curious, because I also work at a bank. Who initiated you to take over this whole transformation? I mean, was it a top-down decision? Was it, for example, the CEO woke up one day and says, I'm going to blast all this thing around and be agile? Or was it, for instance, a team who was inspired and started doing their thing, and they inspired others, and this, became a big thing? Was it a top-down or a bottom? Because it really simplifies things. For example, if the CEO wakes up one day and says, listen, guys, stop doing what you're doing, you're going to do it this way, and everyone, finds a way to align.
Yep. So the question is, was it top down or bottom up? Where did it start from? And the answer is both. And it has to be both. It can't be one or the other. And so we already had an agile community of practice. And so my previous, so prior to my current role, I'm a delivery practitioner. I deliver technology products. And I was running an island of Agile. My team was an island of Agile, and I'd connected up other islands of Agile, and we had an Agile community of practice with 2,500 people in it. And we were being Agile despite the firm. Not because of the firm, but despite the firm. And then we had a new senior leader come in, and he said, Agile and lean. And it was like,
It sounds to me like you infected other teams.
Maybe, but the great thing is he gave that kind of headroom and basically to enable people to unleash their potential. So then we were able to connect top down and bottom up, which you've got to have both.
I think can we take one more? There's someone with their hand raised up there. I'll take one more and then we'll wrap up. But I do want to make a few announcements before you get up, so please don't rush off.
Hi, and thanks for the talk. I just have, because you mentioned you have about internal teams within Barclays, but of course in an organization the size of Barclays, you also have significant amount of projects that you outsource in part or in whole. So do you apply the same agile concept to those projects, and if so, how?
Yeah, good question. To repeat the question, we work with a lot of partners, third-party partners, and how do we make sure that they're, how are they agile as well? The answer to that is that I run a monthly session with our key account managers for our key third-party partners who are doing software development, and they're on the same journey that we're on. So they know this is our approach, they know this is how we're doing it, and I surface, we have a scorecard, and again, shine a light on the data. We shine a light on the data, and we're encouraging the right behavior. We're continuing to evolve this, so we bake it into the normal business as usual relationship that we have with our third-party software development partners. So it just becomes business as usual, using those metrics that I had on the screen.
Good. Well, thank you very much, John. Fantastic talk. Thank you. All right, now, before you leave,